Yeah, crown me king, tell him he done
Shalom,
crown me
and
king.
welcome to another edition here on the Genesis 49ers page, where we say no to vague interpretations and we give thorough breakdowns.
Genesis 49ers, we back, but never moving backwards, here to put Israel on the atlas. Y'all know the slogan. We say no to vague interpretations and we give thorough breakdowns. Today's going to be a special topic because you have a lot of Negro-onlyists, I'm going to call them. They try to say everybody that's Israel has to look phenotypically Negroid, or what they consider what a Negro is, because they don't even know. So when I bring up the proofs and the traditions of the native Indians, like Genesis 32 and 32 says that Israel never ate the sinew of the hollow of the thigh of their meals. And I show you that Native Americans did the same thing. That's something so particular that you have to say, you have to give it up. That's an Israelite custom. Nope. They're going to say, oh, they're Mongoloids. What does that mean? That's a buzzword. A classification created by Blumenbach. So you want to call them Mongoloids, but that's just like saying all niggers, quote unquote, have to have a big nose and big lips and eat watermelon. That's their race. They all have big nose, big lips. They all have nappy, coarse hair, right? But that's not the case when you even look at the American Negro population. Some are very light. Some have thin noses, small noses. Some have hook noses, like you will see a so-called Jew have. Some have small lips. Some have high cheekbones. Some have rounded faces. DJ Academics from the Everyday Struggle, he looks like he has a round face. He looks like, we joke, like a Moabite. he looks like he could be related to the Chinese, but is it that he's related to the Chinese, or that's just in his DNA and his buildup? But he's dark skinned. So trying to generalize our be a racial dictator and trying to say, oh, nope, they have to be Mongoloids, because what was pushed in the mainstream in the 16th, 17th, 18th century and the 19th century, what you're going to find out is when people started actually doing the research and digging and actually reading, it came to the realization that these people didn't come from China or come from East Asia, a Mongoloid or a Mongoloid stock. And that's what this presentation is going to reveal. We're going to thoroughly break this down. Stop taking things from the surface level. And you can't say the consensus. The consensus doesn't even say they come from East Asia or the Mongoloid stock. The consensus now is turning the research to Siberia. But we're going to touch on that as well, because they're giving you half-truths, right? But let's get into it. The first slide. Forbes. It says the physical characteristic of Native American peoples were at one time thought to link them with the so-called Mongoloid peoples of Asia. So you already know we're going right into the topic. But the problem is now generally seen to be much more complex than was formerly supposed. Because that was supposed. That was a hypothesis. But can it be backed up with facts? Let's see. For one thing, the American Indian peoples did not comprise a physically uniform population. They don't all look the same. They never did. So for all you people on YouTube land, you Negro-only lights, okay, that keep making compilation videos. Oh, this Native Indian looks like a Chinese. This ain't. Show all the Native Indian variations. Although the variations in physical type found in Americas are not as great as those found in Eurasia or Africa, they nonetheless are not as great enough to suggest that perhaps several different ancestral groups mixed either before or after migration to this hemisphere. In any event, it would be a mistake to think of Native Americans as part of a Mongoloid. Let me read that again. It would be a mistake to think of Native Americans as part of a Mongoloid racial family, since several of the more important characteristics of the so-called classic Mongoloid type are virtually absent. Let me read that again. Since several of the more important characteristics of the so-called classic Mongoloid type are virtually absent. All you Negro-only lights that are making videos, and I'm going to call out the brother named Tribe of Judah Nazareth, I think it is. You keep coming to my channel. Trolling my channel. Every video that has to do with American Indians, you're in the comment section trolling me. And I go to your channel and I ask you for a formal debate. Since you're so brave in the comment section, formal debate on Google Hangouts, you deny it. You know why? Because you're not studied. You make these claims that they're not Israelites, that they're Mongoloids. You're not studied in this topic. You don't know anything. You take everything on the surface level. You don't dig deep enough. Again, it says racial family. It would be a mistake to think of Native Americans as part of a Mongoloid racial family, since several of the more important characteristics of the so-called classic Mongoloid type are virtually absent among American Indians. Why don't they tell you that? Because they don't study. Such as the B and AB blood types and the epicanthic eye fold. They don't have the same eyes. The eyelid structure is different. They don't have the epicanthic eye fold, which Darwinists would say they evolved that to protect their eyes from the sun, which we know is a bunch of BS. But anyway, let's continue to read on. Be aware of such terms as Caucasoid, Mongoloid, Negroid, etc. They are almost completely discredited as referring to races. So why are you still using this? This is a classification that Blumenbach made up. Mongoloid, Caucasoid, Negroid is Africans, and Africans is Negroid. But wait a minute, you have Negroes on Andaman Islands. You have Negroids in Australia. You have Negroes in Abkhazia, Russia. You have Negroes in Europe. You have Negroes on the island Hebraides. You have Negroes in Scotland. You have Negroes all over the place. So you can't just say Negroid is Africa. But guess what? Blumenbach made up that theory. And you can't say that Native Indians are Mongoloid. Blumenbach didn't even, you know what, that's so funny that he made up the race Mongoloid, the classification Mongoloid. Blumenbach gave the Native Indians their own little classification. That's the funny thing about it. And then later scientists will say, oh no, the Mongoloids are the same because they had to come from the same stock. But Jack Forbes, he did the research, he did the history, he did the due diligence, and he disproved that Mongoloid notion. I could end the video here, but you know this wouldn't be Genesis 49ers if I did. We're going to thoroughly break this thing down. So Jack Forbes is telling you it's a mistake to even include them in the Mongoloid racial family as key elements and characteristics they are missing in their race to even be considered that. And he's telling you the classifications you're using are bogus. I've been saying it on Genesis 49ers. Why? Because Blumenbach created that, I believe, in the 17th century. 17th, 18th century, and you're still following to this day. Erroneous research. Erroneous methodology. These terms don't mean anything. They're buzzwords. What the hell is a Caucasoid? What the hell is a Negroid? What the hell is a Mongoloid? Those people didn't call themselves that, and they don't come from no stock that's made up. You might as well follow Disney. You might as well believe in the Little Mermaid. You believe in all these made up fairy tales by Blumenbach. Why don't you go to somebody that does it better? Disney does it better. Pixar does it better. You might as well believe in talking cars. They're believing in nonsense that there's the five race theory, Caucasoid, Mongoloid, and Negroid, and the other two. You believe in that, right? Or the three race theory, there's only 3 types of skulls. You believe in that, right? You believe there's only 3 types of people on the earth? Are you crazy? There's a multitude of nations on this planet. Are you that simple? And you have the nerve and audacity to group the Mongoloids with the Native Americans, which are the various tribes in the Northern Kingdom. Which we're going to touch on that in today's course. We wouldn't be Genesis 49ers if we didn't. You have the audacity to use Blumenbach, the same man that was a racist scientist. Use scientific racism, saying that all black people are African. That's where you get it from. They're all African. Every dark person you see is African. You got that from him. Even though the Andaman Islands, Australia, okay, Abkhazia, Russia, you have Negroes. Scotland, you have Negroes there. In ancient times, okay, Neolithic times, you had Negroes in Europe. Historically, he's inaccurate. So anybody using his erroneous work, you're going to be in error. Next slide. Let's deal with the skulls. See, I'm thoroughly read on this subject, unlike some of you Negro-only lights. Now forget that. Most of you Negro-only lights have not read up on the history, the anthropology, and the study of the skulls and the bones of the North American Indians, South American Indians, Mesoamerican Indians. You don't know. You don't do no study. You take everything on a surface level and then you run and make comments all on my channel, or you make a video on your channel with a whole bunch of pictures. That's not methodology. That's not scholarship. This is scholarship. Skulls. Categorized by a general conformation which places them apart amongst human races and differentiates them especially from the Indians of North America. For myself, however, I do not attach as more importance as do some eminent anthropologists to the difference between bones, especially the bones of skulls. Too often we find beneath the same mounds, talking about the mounds of Northern Native Americans, dated from contemporaneous burials amidst similar stone implements and pieces of pottery, brachycephalic and dolichocephalic skulls. Now, brachycephalic is short skulls and dolichocephalic long skulls. Now, if it was Mongoloids, it'd be short, rounded skulls or medium rounded skulls. But they're finding long skulls, and they're going look. Let's see if they classify these skulls as Mongoloid that they find. They classify these skulls as the skulls of the Caucasian caste. And remember, don't let that word deter you. You have dark-skinned Caucasian caste, which would be like the Ethiopian and Fulani type. And you have, of course, what you know as the so-called white man skull caste, which he has less melanin in his skin. The skulls of almost Negroid type. Wait a minute, where's the Mongoloid? Where's the Mongoloid skulls? We're finding Caucasian and Negroid skulls. No Mongoloid skulls. All varieties from extreme long heads to rounded or nearly square heads have been found among undoubted Eskimo crania. The external conformation of the heads can only be guessed at, and therefore any conclusion might turn out to be premature. And this is Prehistoric America by Nadalik, page 195. So you can't just say, oh, they're all Mongoloids. Why do we have all these different type of skulls found in their burial sites? And they're contemporary, meaning they were buried around the same time. So it was the same people doing it. Up your scholarship. Stop making just slideshows. Oh, look at this picture. Look at this picture. And we got pictures here too, but we're going to give you the scholarship and the methodology to confirm what we're saying. Again, Jack Forbes said it would be a mistake. It would be a mistake to say the Native Americans are part of the Mongoloid race, because key characteristics is missing from this family, from this nation, from this race. Let's deal with the physique. It says it should be borne in mind that the Native Americans were themselves the result of ancient inter-ethnic relations, and that they were not a uniform group when the Europeans arrived. Because what do we teach? What do we teach? We teach that the Northern Kingdom went amongst the Medes. They went amongst the Persians. Okay? And what did they do? They had relationships. They mixed. That's why Tobit had to tell his son, Tobias, you have to get a daughter of the tribe of your fathers. You have to get a daughter of Israel. Why? Because when they went out there, they went wild. They were lawless. Some of them were lawless. And they mixed with these other nations. So, Jack Forbes' position on this is correct according to the biblical record. There was very little similarity between a heavily bearded, rounded-faced Central California native, and that kills the notion that none of them can grow beards. No, you obviously didn't study Native American biology or anything of that matter, anything that concerns it, because you would know that there were bearded Native Americans as well. and lightly bearded, sharp-featured plains dweller. Variations in color, facial type, beardness, height, body build, and other features were very pronounced, especially in certain groups. And changes could be observed within short distances. So they were a speckled bird, like the scripture says. They had different characteristics, different facial features. Some had beards, some didn't. So for you to say, oh, they have to be the Mongoloid, no. You're not a scholar. It says, thus the Native Americans themselves may represent a process of amalgamation of diverse thoughts, which was not yet complete at the time of European contact. On the other hand, they may originally have been relatively uniform people who formed separate groups through the process of isolation, genetic drift, and differential reamalgamation. And we're going to deal with those terms because a lot of y'all think, oh, if you look one way 4,000 years ago, you're supposed to look the same way 4,000 years later. That's not how genetics work. You don't know genetics. You don't know DNA. But you keep bringing it up. You don't know DNA. Source: Native Americans of California and Nevada by Jack Folds, pages 4 through 5. We source our material over here. Not like you people that erroneously say, oh, if it's not in the Bible, we're not going to follow it. No, what you mean is if it's not your interpretation, you're not going to follow it. You have to validate your claims with 2 or 3 witnesses. Make it concrete. Stop just coming with your own imagination in your mind. Oh, this is what I think it is. I'm gonna push it that way. Then when you show that it's not valid, then when you show them that the translation that they're looking at is not even valid, it's riddled with errors. Stop treating the King James Version like it's the version that Moses himself penned. You're gonna get your feelings hurt. Next slide, biology. Let's talk about genetic drift. We're gonna take you to biology class right here. We're gonna teach you genetics here on Genesis 49, so you won't be lost. Genetic drift. It says the process of change in the genetic composition of a population due to the chance or random events rather than by natural selection, resulting in changes in the allele frequencies over time. Hosea 5 verse 7. Now remember that definition, genetic drift. Because I'm going to show you that's what happened to our people. Because always go, oh, why they don't look like the West Africans? Or why? Some of them do look like the West Africans. But something happened. Hosea 5 and 7. It says, they that dealt treacherously against the Lord, for they have begotten strange children. Now this is talking about Ephraim. Hosea was a prophet of Ephraim. They begotten strange children. Why? Because they mixed amongst their captors. They mixed with other nations, which would cause a genetic drift. If they were doing it in mass, that would cause a genetic drift. Now their DNA is mixed with their DNA, so their children come. It's something called incomplete penetrance, variable expressivity within your genes. Incomplete penetrance means, in short, and I believe I got a definition here, is the genotype doesn't always express itself phenotypically. That's what it means. Meaning you could be related to somebody with your genomes, but you look completely different than them. That would explain the genetic drift and the variations of facial features and physique of the Native Americans. Because they're the 10 tribes that came over here. And you got some people saying, oh, we don't want no mixed bloods, or there ain't supposed to be no mixed bloods in Israel. What Bible are you reading? Don't you know Solomon? Son Rehoboam is of what you would call a mixed blood. His mother was an Ammonite. Right? Did not Boaz mix with Ruth, a Moabite? It's about the father's seed, and that's what counts. Now here we go. Let's deal with genetic. Owls. One member of a pair or any of the series of genes occupy, or alleles, my bad, of genes occupying a specific spot on the chromosome called locus that controls the same trait. The terms penetrance and expressivity quantify the modification of gene expression by varying environment and genetic background. So you have what is called expressivity, and that could change. It's variable. It's a variable. It's not something concrete. Meaning a black woman and a black man could get together. I'm using those terms loosely because those are very loose terms. They can get together and their child could look completely different than the father and the mother. That's called incomplete penetrance. That could happen. But if you knew genetics, you would understand that. You wouldn't come with your dumb argument. Oh, 4,000 years ago, they were all children of Negroes. So guess what? 4,000 years later, no matter what their condition is, there's no such thing as genetics. They should all look the same. No. The African-American group don't even all look the same. Get out of here. So use something called logic, please. Varying environments and genetic background, they measure respectively the percentage of cases in which the gene is expressed and the level of expression. Because it's not the same. The genotype may express in a different way. It's not something concrete every time. 1 + 1 = 2. 1 + 1 = that's not how genetics work. And the definitions are provided by Biology Online Dictionary. Next slide. Let's deal with Ghana. It says the cultural and philological evidence to support the claim that Africans on the West Coast attain a high level of culture and maritime skill is more apparent with each new book on the subject. The matter is out of the realm of pure speculation. It can now be said with a high degree of certainty that Africans braved the roaring waters of the high seas and established relationships with the Indians of the Americas well over 1,000 years ago. In the article African Explorers of the New World by Harold G. Lawrence, 1962, this statement is made. We can now positively state that the Mandingos of Mali and Songhai empires and possibly other Africans crossed the Atlantic to carry on trade with the Western Hemisphere Indians and further succeeded in establishing colonies throughout the Americas. During the 13th century, Mali, the greatest of these two great empires, building on the ruins of ancient Ghana, rose to become one of the leading nations of the world. World's Great Men of Color by J.A. Rogers, page X111, which is 13. In the introduction part, it brings this information out. So why is mainstream scientists not saying, oh, that's considered this as being the patronage or the father of these people as the patron or the father of the Native Indians? No, because it doesn't fit the Mongoloid and Bering Strait theory now, does it? See, they protect their theories. They protect evolution, the monkey theory, the micro molecule, that all life comes from this macro molecule, and all these other madness. You would believe that. You believe that there was an ice bridge that was negative 40 degrees below, and that millions of people was able to cross it without freezing and dying to death or getting hypothermia. But you won't believe that the Northern Kingdom got on ships and sailed themselves over here as the Scythians, as the Carthaginians, okay, and inhabited this land and found this land, like Deuteronomy 33:17 says, Ephraim will push his people to the ends of the earth. No, you won't believe that, but you will believe something that's completely made up. You guys need to just watch Disney, man. Just go watch Disney. You know what? Get your Lady and Tramp going on. Get your Finding Nemo going on. And just watch that. Because you clearly love fairy tales. You clearly love fairy tales. These same people that come up with this burn straight BS are the same people that come up with this evolution macromolecule. Oh, man. Evolved. It still can't give you a transitionary skeleton. A fossil. They still can't produce one. It's a fairy tale. If you're following that, you might as well be following Disney, Pixar, Nickelodeon, Cartoon Network. You need that. That's who you need to follow. That's your master teacher. You're a bunch of YouTube graduates. That's why I tell everybody that comes on my channel to write my sources down. Take notes. Read it for yourself. Don't just go off a video. Don't go off no PowerPoint where all you see is pictures. They need to explain what you're looking at. They don't even do that. They don't even give you no source, no material, no nothing. You're just going off their interpretation. You know the slogan of Genesis 49ers. We say no to vague interpretations and we give thorough breakdowns. So why are they not considering this aspect that you have proof, evidence that these different quote-unquote African tribes were coming over here? And we're going to quantify who these Africans were. Negroid. Professor Lawrence elaborates on these early African voyages to the West in the following statement. It is more important to note that voyages across the Atlantic were resumed or continued during the reign of Askia. proof of this is evidenced by the fact that Columbus was informed by some men when he stopped at one Cape Verde islands off the coast of Africa that Negroes had been known to set out into the Atlantic from Guyana in canoes loaded with merchandise and steering towards the west. The same Christopher Columbus was further informed by Indians of Hispaniola when he arrived in the West Indies that they had been able to obtain gold from black men who had come from across the sea from the south and southeast. Again, not China, southeast. China would be in the west. So where's this Mongoloid thesis coming from? Completely made up. The dates of these accounts coincide precisely with the time that Askia the Great held sway over Songhai. It must also be added that Amerigo Vespucci, on his voyage to the Americas, witnessed these same black men out in the Atlantic returning to Africa. 15th and 16th century Spanish explorers and early American art, legends, and burials provide the principal sources of information on what happened to these African seamen after their arrival in the Americas. In effect, the Spanish conquistadors found dispersed all over the New World small tribes who were from the very first considered Negroes. So you're going to say they're Mongoloid? There's a lot of black tribes or dark skin or Negroid type tribes throughout the Americas. Why? Because they were the speckled bird. Israel is. You hate that term. Oh, he's just a speckled bird. But that's the greatest term I can use for genetic drift. That's scientific. Variable expressivity. Incomplete penetrance. It's in the scriptures. It's also in science. It's also in genetics. That's how your DNA works. The largest African colony appears to have been a permanent settlement at Darwin, where Balboa saw them in 1513. So why is the mainstream scientists not bringing up the Negroid presence? Why? Because they have an agenda to push the Bering Strait. No Mongoloids, no Bering Strait theory. Again, American Indian legends abound with account of black men who came to them from far-off lands. Aside from the report that Columbus attained at Hispaniola, a notable tales recorded in the Peruvian traditions. They inform us how black men coming from the east have been able to penetrate the Andes Mountains. Furthermore, Indian traditions of Mexico and Central America indicate that Africans were among the first occupants of the territory. Some Indians there yet claim descent from these same blacks. So the Indians themselves telling you they come from these Negroid stock people, which we know as the Israelites, which we're going to get into later. But you don't give a damn about what they said. You care about what scientific racism has taught you, which we're going to get where that land bridge theory came from and the Mongoloid thesis and all that. We're going to get that. World's Great Men of Color, J.A. Rogers, page XI5, which is 15. But if you look up page 15 in the book, it's going to be a different page because they use the Roman numerals for the introduction of the book. So again, they were first considered Negroes, and you had many Indian tribes saying that, hey, we descend from these people. Oh, not according to modern science. You're gonna take the people that lived there that was contemporaries, or you're gonna take the people that came after with their scientific folly and jargon over what the native Indians actually taught, which we're gonna get into more of that later in this presentation. So be calm, sit down, relax, get your pens, your notepads out, write this information down, and take notes. Because you're going to be challenged. If you teach that the Native Americans, which my forefathers are, quote unquote, what you would call Mexican Indians, right? When you say I'm a Mongoloid or my father's a Mongoloid, I got a problem with you because the history doesn't line up with that. And I come from Israelites. I am from the tribe of Issachar. In Mexico, you have Oaxaca. In Hebrew, it's Waseka, means to hire or to be hired. A cognate with Issachar. That's my tribe. But back to the lesson, Asia. The problem was one which would readily occur men of the early 16th century so long as America was thought to be part of Asia, or at least near it. It appears that Europeans automatically assumed that the inhabitants of the New World were of Asiatic derivation. But when the growing evidence kept by the Magellan expedition proved that the known parts of America were farther from Asia than from Europe, this neat explanation of the presence of men in America was no longer tenable. Origins of American Indians by Lee E. Huddleston, page 9. So this was a theory concocted in somebody's mind because, oh, this land has to be close to Asia. Then they found out, wait a minute, this is far from East Asia. It became problematic. But just like the liars of this society are, they continue to push a lie in perpetuity. They want to keep the lie living, keep it going. That's why the scripture says he has to destroy the covering cast and the veil that's over all people. They have put a veil over all people. They got you thinking Jesus was a Caucasian with blue eyes and blonde hair. They got you thinking that the Jews were children of vagabonds, Caucasoid, what is known as white, pale Caucasoid, pale skins, like this my Native American brothers would call them. That's not true. Where you have names like Asher, Panahisi, which goes back to being black or dark skin. Ashur in the Book of Chronicles goes back to being black. And many, many more examples of showing that these people were Negroid people. They were calling each other Cush. Their name was Cush. Benjamin of Cush. Cush means black. Why would they call themselves black? Dark skin. It's all in their language and in literary thought. Why in the Petrie Papyri does it list them as either golden skin, brown skin, or dark skin, or black? Why does it do that? Why does Tacitus confuse them with the Egyptians, not the Egyptians, the Ethiopians, have always been known as black? There's a covering cast and a veil over our people. And one of them is saying that these Native Americans, which are the Israelites, are Mongoloid. We're here to destroy that today. Now, the next slide is very interesting. I got a question for the audience. Quien means who in Spanish, right? Look at those eyes. Look at them. You tell me what race of people this is. You tell me. You identify right now, while you're watching this, identify the race of these two individuals on the screen. I need answers. I need answers. We don't believe you. We need more people, right? We need to know who are these two individuals on my screen, because you have people that's trying to judge a whole nation on a few individuals saying that, oh, they look Mongoloid, they must come from China. They must be Chinese, they must be East Asian. Some of them look like Mongoloids. That must be their point of origin. Okay, I gave you enough time. I want you to guess who these people are. Next slide is going to reveal it. These are the Sun people of South Africa. Oh, wait a minute. Look at those eyes. They must be Chinese. No, that's just one of their phenotypes. That's in their genes. That's in their DNA. The Sun people. Now, I want you to look at the next slide. So for all you people saying, oh, if you have eyes like that, you must be from East Asia. No, you have African groups with that same phenotype. How foolish are you? You have yet to do the research. You have yet to employ methodology. You have yet to do scholarship. You're a YouTube graduate. You got your diploma from YouTube. That's the problem. You didn't sit down and read various books on this topic. You didn't sit down and study to get the understanding because you already had a preconceived notion and you ran with it, with your interpretation. We say no to interpretations, give thorough breakdowns. You know how we get down. Here we go. An Abkhazian Negro. This is in Russia. A black Abkhazian named Renhe, who lives in the village of Abjubsa. Look at him. So we have a presence of Negroes in Russia. The Abkhazian Negroes. You never looked at them. And when you hear Siberia, oh, they can't be black people. You have dark-skinned people in Russia. What's the problem? You have what you call Negroid people. They got to come from Negroes, right? You have them in Russia. And we're going to talk about Siberia in a minute. So next slide is dealing with genes again. Variable expressivity, we brought that out before. A variable phenotype is seen among individuals of the same genotype with respect to the trait in question. So you have a variable expressivity where you can have somebody, a member of the same family, same race, same creed, everything. But he doesn't look the same. This would explain Esau. Him coming out pale and the blood showing through his flesh. Okay, this will explain the genetic drift that we see in the native Indians and other of our people throughout the various parts of the world. Because we're scattered all over, remember? We're not concentrated in one spot. We're scattered. I think some of you don't know what scattering means or dispersed means. Anyway, incomplete penetrance. Not every individual of a given genotype shows the expected phenotype. That is, the phenotypic effects of the allele are not always seen in the individual. So all you people saying, oh, 4,000 years ago they came from Negroes, so they have to look like Negroes now. Oh, Esau, he can't be white because his brother's black. It's called incomplete penetrance. It's genetics. It's genes. You don't understand how genes work. You don't understand this science. Obviously, this Negro ghetto scholarship has to stop. You YouTube graduates, man. Your diploma is not valid over here. Again, now let's go into the actual accounts of the ancient men. The Native Races by Hubert Hole, page 67, The Voyages of the Phoenicians. Diodorus Siculus relates that the Phoenicians discovered a large island in the Atlantic Ocean. What could that be? The Americas. Beyond the Pillars of Hercules. Now, the Pillars of Hercules is above the north tip of Africa, and it touches Spain, and almost touches Spain. That's the Pillars of Hercules. Exiting the Mediterranean into the Atlantic Ocean. This island abounded in all manners of riches. The soil was exceedingly fertile. The scenery was diversified by rivers, mountains, and forests. So you know this is not the Canary Islands, because it has rivers, mountains, and forests. It was the custom of the inhabitants to, and they already, Hannibal, the navigator, had already circumnavigated Africa and discovered all that. The soil was exceedingly fertile. The scenery was diversified by rivers, mountains, and forests. The Americas. It was the custom of the inhabitants to retire in the summer to the magnificent country houses which stood in the midst of the beautiful garden. Fish and game were found in great abundance. The climate was delicious, and the trees bore fruit at all seasons of the year. The Phoenicians discovered this fortunate island by accident, being driven on the coast by contrary winds, and which makes sense because there's the current from Africa that goes all the way to South America. Right? So if you got caught on that, you would end up in Brazil or at least the Circum-Caribbean. On their return, they gave glowing accounts of its beauty and fertility, and the Tyrians, who were also noted sailors, desired to colonize it. The Tyrians are the actual Hamites. Now, not everybody in Carthage was Israel. You had the Tyrians and you had the other Carthaginians, which were obviously Israel. They wanted to colonize it, but the Senate of Carthage opposed their plan either through jealousy and a wish to keep any commercial benefit that they might be derived from it for themselves. So it's like, no, you Hamites can't go over there. We're going over there. It's ours. Or as Diodorus relates, because they wish to use it as a place of refuge in a case of necessity. And that's what Israel did. When you go to the scriptures, 2 Ezra 13, 40 through 48, Arsareth is a place of refuge to get away from everybody. Sounds very similar to the account Diodorus Siculus, a noteworthy historian, by the way. He's bona fide, he's solidified. He talks about these Phoenicians going into the Atlantic Ocean, discovering the land. These Carthaginians, which I'm going to prove there were Israelites there. Travels in North Africa by Nahum Slus. Remember, Diodorus Siculus told you about these Carthaginians discovered America and excluded the Tyrians, which are Hamites. Travels in North Africa, page 230. But were all Carthaginians Trinitarians or polytheists? We learn from several inscriptions that side by side with the temple of Baal and Tanit, of the emanation of the face of Baal and the name of Baal, stood the temples wherein the high priest ministered to Baal Shemayim, the god of heaven. Other inscriptions indicate that certain tribes of Asher, again, Asher and of Zebulun lived in Carthage ever since the foundation of the city. So when the scripture says Zebulun should be a haven of ships, that will be Carthage. That's a part of that prophecy. They took those ships and they discovered America. How hard is that to understand and follow? And then the Mayans, They were very maritime people as well, and they trade on ships. How hard is that to follow? They have a great ancestor named Shebulon or Zebulon, right? I covered that in my video, Issachar and Zebulon breakdown. Check it out. On the most beautiful sarcophagus found by Pierre. Oh, let me read that again. The tribe of Asher and of Zebulun lived in Carthage ever since the foundation of the city. On the most beautiful sarcophagus found by Pierre de la Tre among the ruins of Carthage, there is a seal which bears a Hebrew inscription, such as were common in Jerusalem. Joab. It is well known that the name is composed of two parts. Jehovah is father. A great lord of Carthage, therefore, bore the name of a Jew faithful to God. Equally surprising is the fact that the same name Joab, that of David's general, figures in folklore of Africa as the conqueror of that country. This name, and Joab is a very important and prominent figure as we see. This name of a Jew faithful to God, equally surprising is the fact that the same name Joab, that of David's general, figures in the folklore of Africa, the conqueror of that country. This name may be met with at Templin, Tebessa, and the Oud Nun in Mauritania. Other Phoenician inscriptions bear the theoporic forms of the name Jehovah, such as Joaz and Joel, etc. These theories were suggested to me by the result of the excavations made in Carthage during the last 20 years. As a member of the Semitic mission of the French Academy, I had the occasion to observe these excavations in person. So he's not giving you secondhand, third-hand information. He was there. He was a primary witness to seeing these inscriptions, seeing that these inscriptions correlate with the tribes of Asher and Zebulun and Joab and all these other Hebraic discoveries. So Carthage, very much so, was Hebraic, an Israelite society. That's why it said they wouldn't allow the Tyrians to go with them, because you had Israelites there that discovered America. I was given the opportunity to later expressing my opinions on the subject, for in the present state of the Phoenician archaeology, it is impossible to make positive statements. A lecture which I delivered at the Institute of Carthage, and it goes on and on and on. Next slide. I told you we're gonna get into the deep discussion on this. So I wanna ask the audience another question. I want to address the audience. ICS. These are the Tarahumara Indians of northwestern Mexico. Is this a Mongoloid? Does he look Mongoloid to you? Oh, and there's something else I forgot to mention. He's dark skinned. You know what you're gonna say? Oh, he must have been a slave, or he mixed with a slave. Wait a minute. Pre-Columbian art shows black people. Did they mix with slaves? Wait a minute. Amerigo Vespucci said he saw black people when he came to America. Columbus said he saw black people when he came to, dark-skinned people when he came to America. Why do you have to mix in the notion that they have to be slaves if they're dark-skinned? Oh, I forgot. Scientific racism. It's embedded in your brain. It's embedded in your brain to think like that. No, his family has always been dark. That's why he's dark. How about that? How about that? Does he look like a Moabite to you? Does he look like an East Asian to you? Does he look like he's from Taiwan? For all you people that's making all these PowerPoints with nothing but pictures saying, oh, they look like Chinese. They look like Chinese. Why don't they show you pictures like this? Because they have to force their thesis, their idea down your throat, their lie down your throat. They don't want to show anything that oppose it. But here at Genesis 49ers, we're the opposition. I made this channel to support the Native Indian Mexican origins. The original people of this land, their origins, and protect it and preserve it. I know a lot of you people that's watching, you don't understand that. The importance of preserving our identity. Because we have went so long without an identity, went so long without a king, without an image, like Hosea says. We have become used to it. You're amalgamated with this culture, you do everything this culture tells you. You follow everything they say. You don't question these quote-unquote scientists. You just go with their scientific racism. Again, the Tarahumara Indians of northwestern Mexico. Why doesn't he look Mongoloid? What's wrong? Or something? Oh, there's a glitch in the matrix, it seems like. Again, in Mesoamerica, you have the Mosquito Indians. Why don't they look Mongoloid? Why do they have dark skin? Oh, they mixed with slaves. Wait a minute. These Mosquito Indians were known for fleeing from the conquistadors and staying in the the mountains. And that's how they avoided amalgamation. Avoiding admixture with the Spaniards. And we already know the Amanis of Honduras have always been said to be black by the first Colombian contacts. Why are we not looking at these people for an origin story? Why are you all the way in East Asia and you're not studying the people in the land of America? We need answers, man. We don't believe you. We need more people. The Mosquito Indians, everybody. They are not Mongoloid. Now let's get into the Native Indian origin stories. What they teach themselves. Not what somebody that came in the 1800s, late 1800s, is saying they came from. Not what Garcia said in the 1600s. But what the Native Indians said themselves. The Shawnee tradition of the Indian origins from the Indian tribes of the United States by Henry R. Schoolcraft, 1847, page 255. The Shawnees lived in western Ohio and mingled with the Miamis, which that word Miami, Maya-Ami, the downstream people, that's Hebrew completely. Because downstream is Maya, right? Because Maya could be a stream, river, water, spout. Ami means people. Maya Ami, the people, the downstream people, and the Delawares of Indiana. They had a tradition of having crossed a great sea and annually for many years offered sacrifices for their safe deliverance. The following story is characteristic of a class of stories of creation common to these Western Indians. So they themselves don't say they came from a barren strait. Their origin is they came on ships from the east, which correlates with the Carthaginian story, that the Carthaginians had discovered a land in the Atlantic Ocean in the BC period, around 500, 400 BC. Readings in Indiana, History of the Indiana State Teachers, page 30. That kills Bering Strait. Once you destroy the Bering Strait theory, you destroy the Mongoloid theory as well. Because you didn't have East Asians coming in here. And that's funny. The latest Bering Strait theory doesn't even teach that they came from East Asia. They teach they come from Siberia or the Middle East or Europe. That's the funny thing. You're still running with it when they're changing it. But the Native Indians themselves, the Shawnee, was, I believe Shawnee is the Shawnee tribe of Gad. Right? They came on ships. They are the Israelites that traveled here on ships according to 2 Ezra 13, 40-48, Zechariah 10, and also Deuteronomy 33 and verse 17. And also Genesis, when it says the tribe of Ephraim will have the utmost mountains and hills, I believe that's a reference to America as well. Another one. The Orient from the east. None of them is saying it comes from the west, from China. Traces of early migrations from the north, interesting discoveries in Guatemala. The Abbé Brasseur de Bourbourg says, after the semi-fabulous part of the book comes from the history of the passage of the Indians to these parts of America, they came from the east, not from the southeast, but from the northeast. They came from the northeast, certainly passed through the United States, and as they say themselves, they crossed the sea in darkness, mist, cold, and snow. So they came from the east. They came from the east. The Annals of Iowa, volume 6 and 7. Let's get some more. Ships. Amongst the Indians of North America, there is a very general legend that their forefathers came from a land toward the sun rising, which is the east. The Iowa and Dakota Indians, according to Major J. Lynn, believe that all tribes of Indians were formerly one and dwelt together on an island towards the sunrise. They crossed the sea from thence in huge skiffs in which Dakotas of old floated for weeks, finally gaining dry land. Another account from the Native Indians stating that they came from the east on ships. Not the west, not China, not East Asia. They came from the east. Again, matching the Carthaginian story, matching the biblical story, the biblical narrative, and Apocrypha. The Story of Atlantis by William Scott Harriot, page 13 is the source. Again, this is scholarship. Next slide. In the Yucatan. I know many have heard this. What other connections do the Manding people have to the Americas? The Olmecs, Manding, and Americas, Alkean have several things in common. The first commonality is that they both claim to have come to the Americas from across the sea from the east, towards the rising sun, as the Shawnee, the Sauk, and the Yurok. Concerning Olmec, the Spanish friar Diego de Landa said that some old man of Yucatan say that they heard from their ancestors that this country was peopled by a certain race who came from the east, not the west. Again, East Asia is the west. You got to beat this into Negro's head because they're YouTube scholars who God delivered by the opening from the 12 roads through the sea. This means that the Olmecs came to Mexico in the 12 waves of immigrants. The first Americans were African by David Imhotep, PhD. That's where that's coming from. That is a great source. And I gave you 4 sources showing that they came to the Americas by the way of ship from the east. That kills the Bering Strait theory, which means you don't get Mongoloids from East Asia over here. Now let's go into the art, the frescoes, the paintings, the codexes. This is Codex Borbonicus. What do you see here? A dark-skinned man on a Mexican glyph. Oh, I thought there were no black people until slavery. I thought the black people, the black presence could be explained by slavery. You thought wrong. Study, learn, research. Preto meaning dark. Oh, what are all these? What is this? What are all these dark figures doing in the Codex Vendoboneses? What is it doing here? What is it doing here? Look. Dark figures all over with fringes. What is that doing here? Why are they wearing these colorful fringes? Look at this. Why are they wearing these garments? I thought all Native Indians, Mexican Indians were naked. Why are they wearing fringes? Why are they wearing garments? Why are they dark skinned? Oh my God. What's going on here? Somebody, you've been duped. You've been duped. This is from, again, Codex Vendoboneses. We prove and back up our scholarship. We don't just make statements. We give thorough breakdowns. We told you. Out with these vague interpretations. Saying that Native Indians are Mongoloid is a vague interpretation. You can't prove that. You know you can't prove it. In 1375, in the composition of the Catalan map, you see what is called as the Fortunate Islands. What do you see on the Catalan map? You see a black man with a crown, bearded, green robe, as the king of this place called the Fortunate Islands, which I believe is an early identification in 1375 as the Americas. And black people were depicted as the rulers of this land. Look it up, the Catalan map. But I guess they're supposed to be Mongoloids, right? Now, let's go into the history of this land bridge, which would bring East Asians over here or whatever, what have you. You know, Garcian theory. That's what I'm calling it. Because modern scientists, they don't look at this dude and say, oh, this is the person who gave and birthed that theory. No, this is the person who gave and birthed that theory. I'm going to prove it right here. It says the last theory Garcia identified dealt with the East Asian origin possibilities. Chinese, Tartars, and Scythians. Now, the funny thing is, Scythians and Tartars are not Chinese, and the Chinese are not Tartars and Scythians. Scythians are Israelites. Tartars, I'm not too sure what their race go to, but I know they're not Chinese. And then other East Asians lumped together. That was his problem. He just lumped all these groups together and said, oh, they're all the same. They're not. Garcia thought the proximity of Chinese homeland to America might have led them to migrate there, and he found various similarities in peoples and customs to support this idea. Now, this whole theory of just looking at them and saying, oh, they look Chinese, that comes from Garcia as well. He says he noted the physical resemblance of Chinese and Indians, facial features, physique, color, and lack of beard. But we read earlier that the California Indians had beards. So you have to throw that ideology out the window. On the cultural level, he observed that both worshiped the sun as God, both were idolatrous, both used lunar months and Gnostic cords, and both China and the Indies there was a rare law allowing nephews rather than sons to inherit property. Since Garcia identified the other East Asian people with the Chinese, he did not include a separate discussion of them. The Indians proceed neither from one nation. This is Garcia again. The Indians proceed neither from one nation or people, nor went to those parts from one part of the old world, nor did the first settlers all walk or sail by the same road or voyage, nor in the same time, nor in the same manner, but actually they proceeded from various nations, from which some came by sea, forced and driven by storms, other by art of navigation, looking for those lands of which they had heard. Some came by land. So he's the first one to allude that they were able to walk into America. But guess what? He didn't exclude other people coming over here. That was just one part of his theory, that the Chinese people came over here and started races or people or not. That's who it comes from. Garcia. Now, people, if you look at the bottom of the screen, William Gilpin, 1890, is the one who said to come up with the first road or bridge theory, and Joseph Strauss, 1892, land bridge thesis, right? But really, in 1607, Gregorio Garcia already came up with that thesis. That's really where it comes from. And again, it's just a thesis. It cannot be backed up. And even Garcia was like, wait, that can't be the only way they came over here. He included the rest of the theories as well. So that's where it comes from, Garcia, which it was very erroneous to think. And the earlier part of my presentation proves that. The consensus, the consensus today is that the first Indians came to America by the way of Siberia. But few archaeologists would care to identify the first people to come over other than geographically. So the whole argument of Siberia, you're thinking, oh, they have to be Siberians or whatever that means. Siberia is a place, not a race. Let's think about that first. Abkhazia Negroes are in that region, and they're not what you would call Siberian, or what you think in your head. They're not East Asians either. Siberians are not Chinese. The modern professional frowns upon transatlantic contacts. Yet if the entire literature of the past 25 years was surveyed, it is possible the professional will be in the minority. What is known as professional is a minority, saying they had to walk over a land bridge, because majority of the research is revealing what? That the native Indians came over here on ships. The source is Origins of the American Indians by Lee E. Huddleston's page 147. Again, the Siberia argument is not a ancestral one or biological one, just a geographical one. That's it. Now, let's deal with these Warmian bones. And shout out to James Cassell. Subscribe to his channel on YouTube. James Cassell, he does powerful lectures proving with the DNA, skull structures, and the bones and different anthropology to prove that the West Africans are the Israelites. And he also brought this up, and I had to put it in this presentation. Shout out to him. Also subscribe to Maccabees TV. Support Hebraic channels. This source says Inca bones can also be misdiagnosed as a fracture on the cranium. Hanahara and Ishida examined the geographical and ethnographical patterns of the frequency variation of the Inca bone and major human populations around the world. They found that the effect of the geographical conditions and occurrence of Inca bones were not clear, whereas there were some regional variations in frequencies within each restricted geographical area. The Inca bones were rarely observed in Western Eurasia and Northern Asian samples. So, according to the theory, that they should look like Western Eurasian and Asians, East Asians. But it was rarely observed there. Northeast coast of the New World and West African populations show relatively high frequencies of Inca bones. So where's the most likely and most probable origin of these people? Most likely West Africa, with the West African population. Why? Because they're both Israelites. A lot of West Africans are Israelites, different various tribes, and a lot of quote-unquote original Americans are Israelites. That's why you find the same skull structure, the same Warmian bones in both races. It's a high frequency of those bones amongst the West African populations and the high frequency of amongst the Incan and North northeast coast of America. And that's Incan bone and human skulls of the West Anatolian population by J. Morphle, page 277. You can't refute that. That's skulls. That's bones. How do you refute that? Huh? But you want to keep pushing this Mongoloid thing down everybody's throat because you just have a preconceived notion based off nothing. No scholarship, no real critical thinking went into your assessment. The Moors. Now this is bonus, but it's still going into the topic. It says a Muslim historian and geographer Abu Hassan Ali ibn al-Hussein al-Masudi, that's a very long name by the way, 871 to 957 CE AD, wrote in his book Muru ad-Dahab wa Madin al-Hawar, the meadows of gold and cars of Jews, that during the rule of the Muslim Caliph of Spain, Abdullah ibn Muhammad, he lived from 888 to 912 AD, a Muslim and navigator, Kashkash ibn Said ibn Aswad from Cordoba, Spain, sailed from Delba in 889, crossed the Atlantic, reached an unknown territory, Ard Mahula, and returned with fabulous treasures. In al-Masudi's map of the world, there is a large area in the ocean of a darkness and fog, which he referred to as unknown territory, the Americas. Source Ahab Hakim al-Mirsad, Riyad al-Alama, Volume 2, page 36, and Volume 4 is page 175. So you can see that these Moors had discovered America long before Columbus, at least 500 or 600 years before him. And they put it on a map. Why don't we look at these people for genetic analysis, huh? And I'm going to show you that these Moors have also Israelite heritage. Some people don't want to accept that, but we're going to go back to Nahum Sluice, Travels in North Africa, page 365. It says in 711, the conquest of Spain was again undertaken, this time by the Mussulmans in concert with the Jews. The first one to set foot on the soil of Spain was General Tarif, a Jew of the tribe of Simeon, after whom the island of Tarifa opposite Tangiers was named. So he was from the tribe of Simeon. So you had Northern Kingdom Israelites going into Spain in 711. After whom the island of Tarifa opposite Tangiers was named, another Jewish Berber chief named Qualan el-Yahudi followed the Arabs into Spain, and after the peninsula had been occupied by the Muslims, tried to raise rebellion against them. Among other Jews connected with the conquest of Spain were two sons of the Kahina at the head of the army of Jerua. The following suffices to show that the Jews of Morocco, like those of Algeria, were divided into tribes until the 18th century. Ibn Khaldun tells that in 807, the land on which Idris II founded the city of Fez belonged to Bani Borgos and Bani Kayar. Among the Bani Borgos, there were pagans, Christians, as well as Jews. There was a constant state of war between the two tribes. This was a condition in the country of Morocco when Idris I came from Arabia to found a Muslim state. So I just wanted to bring out the fact that these Moors have Israelite background as well. And we're going to give you more proof on that. So even you had more Israelites coming over into America. Remember, coming into our stuff wasn't a one-time thing. The Lord said, the Most High said He opened up the roads again for you. Okay, so it was a trip that kept happening, so to speak. Here it is, Sarah, whose name is corrupted from as Saracen. Now the Saracens is another word for the Moors, deriving from Sarah, and Hagarenes deriving from Hagar. So they was like, no, we're the children of Sarah. The children of Sarah are the Israelites. The children of Hagar are the Ishmaelites. So you can't say, oh, they're all Ishmael because they're Muslims. No, you had Saracens and you have Hagarenes. The Saracens were the Israelites. The Hagarenes were the Ishmaelites. And the source is a connection of sacred and profane history by Michael Russell, page 298, and the quote is from St. Jerome. You can see to the right, the Saracens are clearly a dark-skinned people. Okay, Tarif would look something like this. Okay, and this is medieval art, by the way. We didn't just draw this. This is medieval art, and you can see the Saracens, which were Israelites. Now, real quick, let's deal with the type R haplogroup, R and Q, right? And you can see on the DNA map it coming into America. You can see it all over here in North America right here. You can see it highly concentrated up here in Canada. You can see little specks of it down in South America and Mesoamerica. But you can see over here, you have this area colored, this area lightly colored. But wait, you have a deep concentration here, close to the Middle East, India and all that. Deep concentration of it here in Europe. A deep concentration here in Africa. I believe this is around the Congo region. Deep concentration here. You have some in Australia, some in these islands here. Oh, look at this. China is barely covered. But I just want to show this DNA map, because even if you follow that DNA, you can clearly see that. How are you going to just pick Siberia? Or how are you going to pick China? This is all over the place. Why not Africa? Why not Europe? It's very hypocritical to say, oh, they came from one spot, when that DNA marker is in various places and deeply concentrated. Like here, it's very deeply concentrated. Now, next slide. Just food for thought. Great surprise. Native Americans have West Eurasian origins. Oldest human genome reveals less of an East Asian ancestry than thought. See, the thought process on this has started to change in mainstream scientists' minds. By Brian Handwork, National Geographic, published November 22nd, 2013. Now, let's deal with some of the quotes from that article from S.K. Willerslev. It says, nearly 1/3 of Native American genes come from the West Eurasian people linked to the Middle East and Europe, which we accommodate that to Israelites, rather than entirely from East Asians as previously thought, according to the newly sequenced genome. Although we know that Americans are related to East Asians, it's striking that no contemporary East Asian population really resembles Native Americans. So they don't even resemble them. A lot of you say, oh, they look like them. But really, when you go down looking at the eyes and examine the cheekbones and the skull structure, they really don't. And that's what he brought out. But he's still sticking with the East Asian thesis, by the way, because that's the old one and they don't want to do away with it. It's not like you could say that they are really closely related to Japanese, Chinese, or Koreans. So there seems to be something missing. But this results make a lot of sense regarding why they don't fit so well genetically with contemporary East Asians, because 1/3 of their genome is derived from another population. These results were a great surprise to us, said study co-author and ancient DNA specialist S.K. Willerslev of the University of Copenhagen, Denmark. So this is an expert analyzing the information and the data available, and he said, wait a minute, they don't even look like them. They don't resemble them. They have to come from somewhere else. That's what we've been telling you. These Native American Indians, they're Middle East origin. They are the Israelites. They're not Amerigooks or any other slang or any name, derogatory term that you have came up in your mind. Now, you get mad if I sit here and made a video calling you coon and stuff like of that nature. But you're saying it about your brothers. The hatred has to stop. And with this video, we emphatically showed you that they don't come from Mongoloids. That's a made-up term, one, and their origin doesn't center around East Asian. It's centered around Carthaginians in the Middle East, according to the admission of the Native Indian oral testimony. And we brought up Jack Forbes, combating the science, saying that they can't be Mongoloids because they don't have the A and AB blood type in the epicantic eye fold. Willerslev says they don't even resemble them. When y'all gonna wake up out your slumber? And if you're Native American, this video was made for you. If you're a Mexican Indian, a quote-unquote Hispanic of Indian or Negro descent, this video was made for you. Because there's an attack on the 10 tribes of Israel. There's an attack. And no, I don't discredit the West Africans, some of the West Africans, the Igbo being Gad and the Yoruba being Ephraim. I teach that on my channel. But I also teach the Native Indians and Israelites. So that's a problem for so many of y'all. And I already know I'm going to get someone that's going to troll the comments and not even watch the video in entirety. The scripture says, understand first, then rebuke. Sirach 11:6, I believe. So, again, I'm praying that this video was insightful, that you learn. I tried to throw genetics in here, DNA, anthropology, the study of bones and skulls. I tried to throw that in there. Broke down a lot of subjects. I know it's a lot to chew on right now, but watch this video over and over again. Take the notes, get the general context, add to it. Do your own research. Don't be a YouTube graduate. Don't be a YouTube scholar. Do independent research. Purchase these books. Get these books on ebook format, and you read and you take your notes. So this has been Genesis 49ers. Share the video via the social media websites such as Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Like the video and subscribe if you haven't subscribed. And I appreciate my subscriber base. We have basically exceeded my goal. I wanted to get 1,000. We're about like at 1,200 now. So hopefully next year we can double that or triple that, Lord willing. I'll continue to make content, thoughtful, impactful content. I appreciate the patience. I know these videos usually take some time because I'm piecing together actual presentation. I'm not just turning the camera on or turning the mic on and just freestyling the whole thing. So I appreciate that you brothers and sisters are bearing with me. I'm praying that Israel can get over this Mongoloid thing and we're able to unify, because that's the problem. We always find reasons not to unify. We need to unify with our Hispanic and Native American brothers. My forefathers are Hispanic. I am from the tribe of Issachar. You can find me on Facebook, just Shub Ben Issachar. There's a reason I named myself that. Again, if you don't know the history of what is called Awaka, or however you say it in the Spanish terminology, it's really Waseka, Awaseka. That's actually Hebrew for Waseka. It means he is hired, which is Issachar. But anyway, I'm going to end on that note. The Israelites are definitely the North American Indians, South American Indians, Mesoamerican Indians are definitely not Mongoloid. Genesis 49ers, signing off.